As President Biden saying that he's sending the message to countries like Russia and China that America is back. And that certainly means America is back to multilateralism. The president saying as much during remarks before troops in Mendenhall yesterday while warning of impending threats.
We have to end COVID-19 not just at home, which we're doing, but everywhere. There's no wall high enough to keep us safe from this pandemic or the next biological threat we face, and there will be others. That requires coordinated multilateral action. We must all commit to an ambitious climate action if we're going to prevent the worst impacts of climate change, limiting global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius.
Those are all topics that will be on the table for discussion today when President Biden meets with the UK's Prime Minister Boris Johnson. A little later, actually happening very soon in Cornwall, they will sign a new Atlantic Charter, the agreement signed by the two countries over 80 years ago in 1941. And both countries and media in both countries are spinning this into very positive PR for the two leaders, drawing parallels between Winston Churchill and FDR.
This trip is about repairing some of that damage. This trip is about the President of the United States going back into the world, particularly to our strongest allies, and saying, we are here for you. We don't view our relationship as some kind of a financial transaction. And it really starts today when Joe Biden meets with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson in Cornwall ahead of the start of the G7 summit tomorrow. The two leaders expected to stress close ties and try to manage their personal and political differences.
Boris Johnson not usually getting a very positive PR in both the American and British media, but this is a different instance for him. Now, this new agreement, according to the UK, will update tech, trade, and travel agreements between the two countries. But the Biden administration is also saying that this is a way to counter Chinese aggression on the world stage and growing Chinese authoritarianism. However, as President Biden looks to update this agreement in what they say is a counter-Chinese aggression, the president's also rolling back Trump-era restrictions on several Chinese tech entities that include TikTok, that app that has been accused of being spyware or spying on American citizens via the app, something that the Trump administration put restrictions on because they were very concerned about it. Now, as I said, we're about to see the president and first lady arrive at that meeting with Boris Johnson. The first lady will also be meeting with Johnson's wife, Carrie. Sean and Emma.
And Emerald, as we continue to watch the president, it was the first lady who also made some news herself on Twitter the other day. Do we have any more information behind the photo that was tweeted from her account?
No, we reached out to the White House to ask, what that was about, because it was a bit odd. You saw her sitting at that desk, the presidential desk on Air Force One with the president's jacket behind her with his name, Joe Biden, on it, and her suggesting that she's the one going through the book preparing for the meeting. Clearly that raised eyebrows given what so many Republicans say specifically about Joe Biden and his capacity to lead. She also had an interesting moment yesterday when she was on stage, and she appears to have jokingly said to her husband to pay attention while she speaks.
Always.
Joe, pay attention.
Dry laughter, but between the picture and that, it had Twitter going.
Yeah, it did. I noticed, too, he was wearing a face mask. And, of course, we know the president fully vaccinated, of course. Newsmax is White House correspondent Emerald Robinson, live for us in D.C. Thanks so much, Emerald.
All right, for more reaction on this, we bring in U.S. Senator from Montana. That is Steve Daines joining us live. Senator, good to see you. Just first on your overall reaction now to President Biden. You've obviously seen him overseas. He's set to meet with Boris Johnson and others. What are you looking forward to from the president and the possible news that he could make overseas?
Well, first and foremost, we do need to work with allies to counter China. But what about the American jobs? Let's not forget what Biden is doing at the moment with Russia, as he just gave the green light for that natural gas pipeline that'll go from Russia into Germany. It's Nord Stream 2. Building Russian jobs, making Europe more dependent on Russia for energy, while at the same time, we got the devastating news just yesterday that TC Energy, that's the company that was going to build the Keystone Pipeline, they just pulled the plug because they got an over $5 billion kind of project investment. And here's what happened. TC Energy, which is going to be growing American jobs, Joe Biden just buried that company. At the same time, he buried the jobs that go with it. Instead of burying a pipeline, he buried the jobs, he buried the company. At the same time, greenlighting a Russian gas line. You can't make this up, this contrast between growing Russian jobs versus killing American jobs, completely at the feet here of Joe Biden. He is the one to blame for what happened here in America and these Keystone Pipeline jobs.
Yeah, Nord Stream 2, referring to that, they're over the issues there overseas with Russia specifically, allowing that, and not the pipeline here, the Keystone XL pipeline, which many may have been confused by because we knew that he ended that coming right into presidency, but that plug is officially done for. What does that do to your state, sir?
Yeah, remember, it was 6 hours after Joe Biden was sworn into office. He signed an executive order killing the Keystone Pipeline. Remember, this is a private sector infrastructure project, not paid for by the taxpayers, but by the private sector. It literally would have created thousands of jobs. It would have continued to build out North American energy instead of dependencies on the Middle East. You realize right now we're importing more oil and liquids from Russia than we are from Saudi Arabia. And so there's the contrast. Why did Joe Biden kill an American pipeline, this TC Energy project, which, by the way, they just pulled the plug on it, but he greenlights a Russian natural gas pipeline that puts Europe now dependent on Russia and grows Russian jobs?
Yeah, from what I was reading, there was a little bit of hope that perhaps the president would reverse his order. That did not happen, and that plug was pulled. Let me ask you about this, too. The president making news saying that the biggest threat to America is climate change. Here's that.
We have to end COVID-19 not just at home, which we're doing, but everywhere. There's no wall high enough to keep us safe from this pandemic or the next biological threat we face, and there will be others. That requires coordinated, multilateral action. We must all commit to an ambitious climate action if we're going to prevent the worst impacts of climate change, limiting global warming to no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius.
And he goes on to talk about that a lot. What's your reaction to that?
Well, look, the United States can be very proud of its record as it relates to reducing CO2. Thanks to what's gone on in the private sector, thanks to what's gone on in the energy revolution, we are leading the world on reducing CO2 emissions related to energy. I don't see this climate change as being the greatest threat that we face. Look at the threats we face right now from China, from Russia, from Iran, the threats we face on our southern border. I wish that President Biden would go down to the southern border and take a look at that threat right now going on. I wish President Biden would spend some time looking at what's going on with the threat from China, the threats from Russia, and how do we continue to build this economy? Because when you create dependencies of the United States economy on places like the Middle East and Russia for energy, that takes us back to the 1970s. I think he's forgotten what it was like back in those days. We can be thankful for this made in America energy revolution that's given us lower energy prices, national security, and a growing economy.
Senator, before you go, a lot of shakeup there in the Senate as far as getting bills passed. You've had leaders within the Senate saying that bipartisanship is over. How do you read the state of the Senate right now?
Well, look, I mean, we have two different views, and of course, what Republicans are standing for and the Democrats. But we've actually moved 6 bipartisan bills through the Senate already this year. So I reject that notion that there's not an opportunity for bipartisan cooperation. The challenge we face is Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, and Joe Biden just want to go their way on everything. Look what happened last year under President Trump. We passed 5 bipartisan COVID relief packages. Then President Biden is sworn in office. And then they passed, with no Republican support, a very liberal wish list disguised as a COVID-19 package. So there's opportunity for bipartisan cooperation. It's a 50-50 Senate. They don't have some kind of mandate to go far left. That's the problem, though. They want to take this country so far left, and as Republicans, we're not going to let them do it.
All right, that is Senator Steve Daines from Montana. Senator, good to see you. Thank you so much for your time.
Good to see you, too.
Hey, I'm Rob Finnerty. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please join the conversation in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe, too. Hit the bell icon to be alerted to breaking news. And remember, there's a whole lot more on Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news network. Newsmax TV, we're real news for real people.